There's a new tax proposal making waves in Congress, and it's really sparking a huge debate. It pits two really big ideas against each other: tax fairness on one side and the future of America's family businesses on the other. So today, we're going to break down this Billionaires Income Tax Act and see what's really at the heart of this whole thing.
To really wrap our heads around this, let me start by asking you a kind of strange question. What if you had to pay taxes on profits that haven't even hit your bank account yet? Sounds weird, right? Well, that's the core concept we're going to dig into.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this proposed law. How would it actually work, and who would it really affect?
So the proposal's official name is the Billionaires Income Tax Act. But here's the first thing you need to know. Despite the name, it would also hit some of America's millionaires. The whole point is to fundamentally change when and how the wealthiest people pay taxes on their assets as they grow in value.
The key term you're going to hear over and over is unrealized gains. It sounds technical, but it's pretty simple. Imagine you own a house, and this year its value goes up by, say, $100,000. That's a gain, for sure, but it's only on paper until you actually sell the house and get the cash. That profit, the one you haven't cashed in on yet, that's an unrealized gain. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The bill treats different kinds of assets very differently. For stuff you can easily sell, like stocks, you'd get taxed on those unrealized gains every single year. But for non-tradable assets, like a family-owned business, the tax gets deferred until you sell it. But, and this is a huge but, there's a catch. They'd slap an interest charge on you for every single year you delay that tax payment. It's basically a fee for not paying up sooner.
Okay, so with those mechanics in mind, let's look at the first side of this argument, the push for fairness. Why do the supporters of this bill think this change is so important?
For proponents, this is all about closing what they see as a major tax loophole. They argue that the way things are now, the wealthiest people can build up enormous fortunes on these unrealized gains for years, sometimes their entire lives, without ever paying taxes on that growth.
And this quote really gets to the heart of their mission. Supporters want to create, and I'm quoting here, a fairer tax system where the most successful Americans pay a tax rate comparable to working families. You know, folks who get taxed on their income pretty much as soon as they earn it.
Now let's flip the coin and look at the other side. Opponents of the bill, especially people in the family business community, have some really serious concerns.
And you can literally see that concern right here. A recent poll of family business owners showed that a staggering 79% are worried about this bill and what it could do. Only 10% said they weren't concerned. That's a pretty overwhelming number.
Tax policy expert Mark Warren has a great name for these unrealized gains. He calls them phantom gains. And his argument is that forcing businesses to pay tax on this phantom money isn't just an unfair tax hike, it also creates this massive new burden of time and money just to deal with all the complicated new rules.
So a really crucial point here is what that money could have been used for instead. Opponents call it wasted capital. They say it's money that businesses desperately need right now to handle economic challenges, to invest in new equipment, or, to expand and hire more people.
Pat Soldano, who is the president of Family Enterprise USA, puts it in even starker terms. She believes that if a tax like this actually passes, it won't just be some small inconvenience. She says it will actively cause damage to some of the most successful family-owned businesses and employers in the country.
And this really gets down to the practical, boots-on-the-ground problem for opponents. Look, unlike someone who can just sell off a few shares of stock to pay a tax bill, a family business owner can't just sell a corner of their factory or a piece of their farmland. They often just don't have that kind of cash lying around. The big fear is that they'd be forced to sell off critical assets, or maybe even the entire business, just to pay a tax bill on a profit that, remember, is still just on paper.
Okay, so to really understand why this is such a heated issue, we need to zoom out and look at the sheer scale of these family businesses in the U.S. economy. I mean, what is actually at stake here?
So why does this one tax proposal stir up so much passion on both sides? The answer is the enormous, and I mean enormous, footprint of family-owned businesses. Let's just look at the numbers.
First up, their economic output. Family businesses contribute an incredible $7.7 trillion to the U.S. GDP every single year. That is a massive slice of the entire American economy. Next, let's talk jobs. These businesses aren't just creating value, they're responsible for 83.3 million jobs across the country. That's millions and millions of families who rely on these businesses to put food on the table. And to put that number into perspective, that 83.3 million jobs adds up to 59%.
nearly 2/3 of the entire private workforce in the United States. So, yeah, the health of these businesses directly impacts the majority of American workers.
So this really is the fundamental question here. On one hand, you have a powerful argument about fairness, that the wealthiest should pay taxes on their gains as they grow, just like everyone else. But on the other hand, you have this very real risk of harming the family-owned businesses that form the backbone of the American economy. It's a huge conflict, and there are absolutely no easy answers.